All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at something pretty wild. A system that's literally trying to turn a massive global crisis into a highly profitable venture by, well, mining our own trash. We're breaking down the business plan and the underlying tech of JLT. They've engineered a way to sustainably extract real, hard value from everyday waste. Now, if you follow commodities or the environmental sector, you know that finding a green solution that actually makes financial sense is incredibly tough. But JLT, they've put forward a really intriguing blueprint.
So think about this for a second. How do we actually solve the global crude oil supply crisis while simultaneously saving the planet? It's the million-dollar question, right? Because right now, geopolitical conflicts and crazy supply chain disruptions are heavily squeezing our global crude oil supply. It's a massive, massive problem. We desperately need energy and raw materials to keep the economy moving, but the Earth is practically drowning in waste, and our traditional methods of dealing with it are totally failing us. So how do we bridge that gap without tearing up the Earth or polluting the sky?
To really grasp the financial upside here, we've got to look at the macro picture. We are basically in a perfect storm right now. You've got wildly volatile crude oil prices and intense geopolitical conflicts disrupting traditional supply lines. At the same time, the climate crisis is forcing strict ESG management across the board. Companies are scrambling, trying to meet RE100 initiatives to hit 100% renewable energy. Plus, locally, there's a looming 2026 ban on the direct landfilling of household waste. Add all that up, and soaring raw material costs paired with strict environmental regulations make resource recovery an absolute economic necessity. It's not just nice to have anymore.
And honestly, that is exactly why traditional incineration is just a dead end. For decades, if we couldn't bury waste, we just burned it. But that means high pollution, terrible resource recovery, and it heavily contributes to toxic soil and air degradation. You're literally sending value up in harmful smoke. JLT's pyrolysis technology, on the other hand, completely flips the script. It gives us eco-friendly processing, incredibly high-yield resource recovery, and a safe conversion into renewable energy without all those toxic emissions.
Enter JLT. These guys have developed a proprietary low-temperature pyrolysis technology, and what that means is it safely transforms everyday organic waste into massive financial value. By using a highly controlled low-temperature environment, the system breaks down the complex molecular chains found in organic waste, stuff like plastics and rubber, and reverts them straight back into usable forms of energy and raw materials. It's a precise, safe process that maximizes your yield while minimizing the energy you have to put into it.
Okay, let's look under the hood at how this actually works. It's a super sleek, four-step engineering process. First up, you feed in the waste. Simple enough. Second, it goes into the reactor for that specialized low-temperature processing we just talked about, safely breaking the materials down. Third, the resulting gases hit a condensation phase where they're cooled into high-quality liquid fuel. And finally, step 4, those recovered resources can be directly plugged into renewable power generation. It is a seamless, closed loop from trash directly to energy.
Now, if you know anything about waste processing, your alarm bells are probably ringing right now. You're thinking, what about emissions? What about the toxic dioxins you get when you break down plastics like PVC? Well, here's where JLT's design is kind of brilliant. During the breakdown, the process inherently produces acidic gases, mostly HCl. But JLT's system actively neutralizes that acidic gas using an alkali treatment. That specific alkali treatment is the key differentiator here. It means the process runs cleanly and virtually eliminates the emission of those toxic dioxins you get with traditional burning. For environmental compliance, that is an absolute game changer.
And look, this isn't just some lab theory. We've got the experimental data to back it up. They are successfully extracting valuable, high-margin oil directly from everyday, highly problematic waste. Think about the billions, literally billions of discarded face masks generated recently, or industrial waste ink. JLT's technology breaks those down and pulls out usable oil. It just proves how incredibly versatile the system is across completely different waste streams.
All right, let's pivot to where the massive money is: copper. To give you some scale, in 2020 alone, domestic copper imports reached nearly 6.7 million tons. With global supply shortages dragging on and the insane demand for copper for electric vehicles and green energy grids, securing a reliable domestic source through recycling is a highly, highly lucrative target. To put it in perspective, finding a local copper recycling source is basically like discovering an untapped mine right inside the city limits.
Which brings us to waste wires. These are essentially stranded assets sitting in junkyards right now. Waste wires are made up of 40 to 70% highly valuable copper.
The catch, that copper is heavily wrapped in a 30 to 60% plastic coating, usually PE or PVC. Traditionally, stripping that wire is insanely labor-intensive. Or worse, people just burn the plastic off, which releases massive amounts of those toxic dioxins we talked about earlier.
But here is the absolute breakthrough. Through JLT's advanced processing, experimental data shows an astonishing 100% recovery rate for the copper from these waste wires. Because the low-temperature pyrolysis breaks down the plastic casing safely without burning it, the copper inside is left completely intact. It's pristine. You are literally turning problematic trash directly into premium, universally demanded commodities. Let's break down the actual yields for household waste wires, because this is where the unit economics get crazy. Every single piece of this is a high-margin, market-ready revenue stream. When JLT processes household waste wire, the yield is 40% clean copper. But the plastic coating doesn't just vanish. It converts into 18% usable oil and 17% combustible gas, which you can sell or use to power the facility itself. The last 25% is char, which has its own industrial applications. There is literally zero waste left over.
And if you look at waste telecom cables, the economics get even better. You get a massive 55% copper yield, plus 10% oil, 15% gas, and 20% char. That completely redefines the profitability of green tech waste management. You're taking a hazardous waste product and extracting maximum value from every single molecular component. It's not just a huge win for the environment, the margins are incredibly compelling for any serious investor.
So, as those strict zero landfill bans and intense ESG mandates get closer and closer, the old way of doing business is officially over. The demand for raw materials is colliding head-on with the need for environmental preservation. The real question is, who is going to capitalize on this proven, eco-friendly resource engine? JLT has the data, the experimental proof, and the tech framework to turn a global problem into a generational investment opportunity.
If you're ready to get in on a technology that guarantees both profound environmental impact and unmatched economic viability, you need to reach out to JLT today. Seriously, take this contact info down right now. You can visit their website at www.jltcon.com. You can shoot them an email at jlt_co@naver.com, or just call them directly at 0707-813-7734 or 010-8281-8847. We've spent decades treating our planet like a disposable garbage can, but what happens to the global economy when we finally realize that trash was actually treasure all along? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and we'll see you next time.